My family demanded I leave my own house for my sister's wedding, but when they found out I'd spent all my savings to buy it, the truth left them speechless. I'm 31 years old, work from home in digital marketing, and honestly, I need to tell this story because I've been carrying this around for like 4 years now and I still can't believe what happened. The thing is that in 2017, I bought my family's lake house. You know, that house that had belonged to my maternal grandparents and had been the whole family's vacation spot for as long as I can remember. And what started as something I thought was going to be a win-win situation for everyone ended up basically being the catalyst for the worst family dynamic you could imagine. But I guess I should start from the beginning so you understand all the context, because without that you'd probably think I'm a selfish monster, which is exactly what my family thought of me for a long time. The lake house was that magical place from my childhood, you know? My grandparents bought it in the 70s when the area wasn't as developed yet, and after they died in 2015 and 2016, the house went to my parents, James and Barbara. It was a beautiful house, but kind of outdated. Like there were things that urgently needed fixing, but nobody ever fixed them because it was just for vacations, and over time it deteriorated a bit. I went there every summer when I was a kid, and then as a teenager, and I had all these incredible memories of bonfires and boat rides, and basically the best parts of my life had happened in that place. My sister Emily, who's 5 years younger than me, also loved that place, though she was always more of a city person than me, honestly. Emily was always the apple of my parents' eye. I don't know if it was because she was the youngest or because she was a girl or what, but for as long as I can remember, my parents spoiled her in a way they never spoiled me, and I kind of just accepted it because that's how things were in my family. Everything started to change in 2017. Emily was finishing high school and had applied to this super expensive private university that was literally her dream. Like she'd been talking about going there since she was about 14. She was a good student, not excellent, but good, and my parents were convinced she was going to get a significant scholarship that would cover most of the tuition. Well, turns out that when the acceptance letters came, Emily was accepted to her dream university, but the scholarship they offered her was much smaller than everyone expected. My parents went into total panic mode because they hadn't saved enough money to cover 4 years of college at such an expensive place, and Emily basically had an emotional breakdown because she thought she wouldn't be able to go. At that point, I was 26 years old and working remotely, which was perfect for my lifestyle. I'd been renting an apartment in the city, but I hated the noise and congestion, and honestly, I'd always dreamed of living in a more peaceful place. When my parents casually mentioned during a family dinner that they were considering selling in the lake house to be able to pay for Emily's college, something clicked in my brain. I said to them, "Wait, what if I buy it?" They looked at me like I was crazy at first, but then we started talking numbers and it turned out it made sense. I'd been saving quite a bit of money because I lived frugally and had no debt, and although I didn't have enough to buy the house at full market price, my parents agreed to sell it to me at a significant family discount. The price we agreed on was basically the exact amount of money they needed to cover Emily's first year of college, with a little extra for emergencies. We signed all the papers in May 2017, and I remember perfectly the day the house officially became mine, because it was this surreal moment where I thought, wow, I actually own this place that's meant so much to me my whole life. I spent most of my savings on the purchase, like I was left with practically nothing in the bank after paying the down payment and closing costs and all that, but I felt it was worth it. My parents were happy because they could send Emily to the college of her dreams. Emily was euphoric because she was going to be able to go to that school, and I was excited because I was finally going to live in this beautiful place I loved. Everyone won, or so I thought. What I didn't anticipate was the amount of work the house actually needed. Like I said, it had been a vacation house for decades, and although it was nice and had that rustic charm, it wasn't equipped to be a year-round residence. The heating system was basically non-existent because nobody had needed to heat the house in winter. The insulation was terrible. There were plumbing problems nobody had fixed because we only used the house in summer. And don't even get me started on the state of the roof. I spent the next 6 months of my life, from June to December 2017, renovating that house with my own hands and with the little money I managed to save after the purchase. I installed a new heating system, replaced all the windows so they'd have double panes, fixed the entire roof that had leaks in 3 different places, modernized the kitchen that literally had appliances from the 80s, and basically converted what was a summer cabin into a real house where someone could live comfortably year-round. I officially moved in January 2018, and it was like starting a new life. I worked from home anyway, so it didn't matter where I lived as long as I had good internet connection, which was one of the first things I made sure to install. The house was about 40 minutes from the nearest city, which was perfect for me because I had the privacy and peace I wanted, but could still go get what I needed without a problem. The first few months were incredible. Like I finally felt I had my own space and my own place in the world, and every day I woke up to the view of the lake and thought I'd made the best decision of my life. But here's where things started getting weird. My parents and Emily kept treating the house like it was communal family property. In March 2018, like 2 months after I moved in, my mom called me and said she and my dad wanted to spend the weekend at the house because they needed a break. I told her, "Well, Mom, this is my house now. I live here. It's not a vacation house." And she got super defensive and said something like, "Well, but it's still the family house. I thought we could still use it." I explained to her that no, that I'd bought the house specifically to live in it, not to maintain it as a family hotel, and she got upset but eventually accepted it. Then in summer of that same year, Emily wanted to bring her boyfriend Tyler and some friends from college to spend a week there, and when I told her no, that this was my house and not a party place for college kids, she accused me of being selfish and told me I'd ruined the family traditions. This pattern continued over the next few years. Every few months, someone in my family would assume they could use the house whenever they wanted, and each time I had to remind them that, no, this was my primary residence, my actual home where I lived and worked every day, not a vacation rental property that was available for whoever wanted to use it. And every time I established this boundary, someone got upset with me and made me feel guilty, like I was being unreasonable for wanting privacy in my own house that I'd bought with my own money. In 2019, my partner Riley moved in with me, and that made the house feel even more like our home. Riley and I had been dating since 2018, and when things got serious between us, it was natural for them to want to move into the lake house with me. Together, we kept improving the house, like we built a new deck in the back, planted a garden, basically made that place our sanctuary. Riley also worked remotely, so it worked perfectly for both of us. My parents met Riley a couple times and were polite but never really warm, and I think deep down, it bothered them that someone else was living in what they still considered the family house, even though legally it hadn't belonged to them for 2 years. Emily got engaged to Tyler in December 2019, and my parents were ecstatic because she was still in her last year of college and already had her whole life planned out with this guy who seemed successful and stable. They originally planned the wedding for June 2020, but, well, we all know what happened in 2020, so they had to postpone everything. Eventually, they decided to have the wedding in December 2021, like a super elegant winter wedding at an expensive venue near where my parents lived. Emily asked me to be part of the wedding party, which honestly surprised me because our relationship had been tense since I bought the house, but I said yes because I thought maybe this was an attempt to reconnect. Everything exploded in October 2021, like 2 months before the wedding. Emily called me on a Tuesday afternoon while I was working, and from the moment I answered the phone, I could hear in her voice that she wanted something. She told me all excited that she and Tyler had decided they wanted to do their honeymoon at the lake house, that it would be like 2 full weeks in December after the wedding, and that Mom and Dad had told her it was fine. I was like, wait, what? And I asked her what she meant exactly by wanting to do their honeymoon there. She explained, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, that basically they wanted Riley and me to leave the house for 2 weeks so they could have the place to themselves for their honeymoon. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I told her, "Emily, this is my house. I live here. I'm not going to leave my own house for 2 weeks so you can have a free honeymoon." She was silent for a moment, and then said, "But Mom said, you agreed." I explained that nobody had asked me anything, that this was literally my primary residence, and that no, I wasn't going to leave my house so she could use it. Emily started getting defensive and told me I was being selfish, that this was her wedding and her honeymoon, and that I could just stay at a hotel or with my parents for 2 weeks. I reminded her that I'd bought this house with my own money specifically to live in it, that I'd spent thousands of additional dollars renovating it to make it livable year-round, and that no, I definitely wasn't leaving. She got really angry and started yelling at me over the phone, saying I'd always been jealous of her, that I'd never supported her, that I was ruining the most important moment of her life. I told her there were literally thousands of beautiful places where she could go on her honeymoon, that she had the whole world to choose from, and that I didn't understand why it had to be specifically my house. She said she wanted the lake house because it had special family memories there, and she wanted to share that with Tyler, and I told her I understood that, but it didn't change the fact that this was my house now, and I lived here. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. Literally 10 minutes later, my mom was calling me. She didn't even let me explain my side of the story. She just started telling me she was disappointed in me. How could I be so selfish with my own sister in her special moment? That, the least I could do after they'd sold me the house at a discount, was let Emily use it for 2 weeks. I tried to explain that the family discount hadn't been a favor, but a business transaction, that I'd paid good money for the house and had spent even more fixing it up, but she didn't want to listen. She told me that if I didn't let Emily use the house, it would be clear what kind of brother I really was. My dad called that night with the same message. Then Emily sent me like 50 text messages over the next few days, alternating between trying to guilt-trip me by telling me how much it would mean to her and Tyler, and attacking me saying I was a terrible brother and only cared about myself. My parents kept calling and texting too. Like it was a constant bombardment from 3 people telling me I was wrong, that I was being unreasonable, that I was ruining Emily's wedding. What frustrated me most was that nobody seemed to understand or want to acknowledge that this was my house. It wasn't a rental property. It wasn't a shared vacation house. It was literally the place where I lived with my partner every day. Can you imagine if someone called you and said, "Hey, I need you to get out of your house for 2 weeks because I want to use it"? It's completely ridiculous, but my family couldn't see that. To them, the house was still the family lake house, no matter who'd bought it or who lived in it. After like 2 weeks of constant pressure, where they basically called and texted me every day, Emily called me again. This time, her tone was different, like colder and more calculated. She told me that if I wasn't going to be flexible about this, then she didn't want me at her wedding. She said she couldn't have someone so selfish and unsupportive as part of her special day, and that she was officially uninviting me, not just from the wedding party, but from the entire wedding. I told her if that was her decision, then she'd have to live with it, because I wasn't leaving my house. She hung up and blocked my number. My parents called me the next day, furious. My mom was crying, saying I'd broken the family. How could I be so stubborn? That Emily was devastated. My dad told me he was ashamed of me and that I needed to reflect on my priorities. I told them my priorities were perfectly clear, that my house and my life with Riley were my priority, and that if they couldn't respect that, then I didn't know what else to tell them. The conversation didn't go well. The only person in my family who supported me was my Aunt Helen, my mom's sister. She called me like a week after all the drama and told me she'd heard what was happening from my mom. I expected her to lecture me too, but instead she told me she thought I was completely right. She explained that she'd seen for years how my parents favored Emily and how they expected me to always sacrifice whatever was necessary to make my sister happy, and that it was time I established healthy boundaries. She told me that what Emily and my parents were asking was completely unreasonable, and that I shouldn't feel guilty for defending my right to live in my own house in peace. I honestly almost cried during that call because it was the first time someone in my family validated what I was feeling. The wedding happened in December 2021, without me present. Riley and I spent that weekend at the lake house, and honestly, it was one of the most peaceful weekends we'd had in months. We made a bonfire, cooked good food, watched movies, and tried not to think too much about the fact that my sister had gotten married without me being there. It was strange and sad, but also, in a way, liberating. Like I'd finally allowed myself to put my own happiness and well-being above my family's unreasonable expectations. I didn't hear anything from Emily or my parents for like 3 weeks after the wedding. Then, in early January 2022, I got a long text message from Emily. In the message, she apologized for how things had gone, but also explained something I didn't know. Apparently, and this is the part that still makes me angry when I think about it, my parents had never told Emily that I was the legal owner of the house. For all these years, since 2017, they'd told her that I was living in the house basically rent-free as a favor from them. that the house still technically belonged to them, but they let me live there because I worked remotely and needed a quiet place. Emily literally thought for 4 years that I was living for free in my parents' property, which is why she assumed she could use it whenever she wanted and why she got so angry when I refused to leave. In her message, Emily admitted she'd discovered the truth when she asked Tyler why I was being so stubborn about the house, and he, who's a lawyer, asked her who the legal owner of the property was. When she told him she assumed it was my parents, he suggested she verify it. Emily confronted my parents, who finally admitted that I'd bought the house in 2017 and that it was completely mine. Emily said in her message that she felt foolish and manipulated, that she understood now why I'd reacted the way I did, and that she was sorry. She didn't exactly apologize for everything she'd said to me and how she'd treated me, but it was something. I responded civilly, but kept my distance. I told her I appreciated that she now understood the situation, but that the damage was already done in terms of our relationship. Several more months passed before we spoke again, and when we did, it was like superficial and awkward conversations. My parents never apologized for lying to Emily about the ownership of the house or for pressuring me to leave my own home. In fact, I still think they believe I was the one who caused all the drama by refusing to be flexible. Now it's 2025, and things are better, but still weird. Emily and I talk occasionally, like on birthdays and Christmas, but we're not close like we were when we were kids. My parents and I have a functional but distant relationship. We see each other at big family gatherings, but we don't spend time together just to spend time together. Riley and I continue living happily at the lake house, and honestly, it's the most beautiful and peaceful place I could imagine. We've kept improving it year after year, and it feels completely ours now in a way that goes beyond the legal title, you know? We've built a real life here. We have friends in the area. We know our neighbors. This is our real home. Sometimes I wonder if I made the right decision being so firm with my boundaries. Part of me feels like maybe I could have found some kind of compromise, like maybe offering to let them stay at a nearby hotel and spend the days at the house but not the nights, or something like that. But most of the time, I know I did the right thing. My family put me in an impossible position where I had to choose between my own comfort and autonomy in my own home or making my sister happy at her wedding. And it shouldn't have been my responsibility to make that choice in the first place. They were the ones who created the problem by continuing to treat my house as communal property and by lying to Emily about who really owned it. What bothers me most, looking back, is that I bought that house partly to help my family. I literally spent all my savings so Emily could go to her dream college, and instead of appreciating that sacrifice, my family saw it as an opportunity to continue having access to a property that no longer belonged to them. And when I finally established reasonable boundaries about my own space, they made me the villain of the story. Riley sometimes asks me if I regret buying the house, knowing all the drama it caused. The honest answer is no, not for a second. This house is my favorite place in the world. It's where Riley and I built our life together. It's where I feel most like myself. The problem was never the house. The problem was that my family couldn't or wouldn't respect that this house was mine and that I had the right to live in it without being constantly bothered. That's not the house's fault. That's the fault of unhealthy family dynamics that probably existed long before I bought this property, but that the purchase definitely brought to light. Now, when I look out the window and see the lake, or when Riley and I sit on the deck we built together and have coffee in the mornings, I feel like I finally found my place in the world. My family can think I'm selfish. They can feel hurt because I didn't give in to what they wanted, but I know the truth. I know that all I did was defend my right to have peace and privacy in my own home, and if that makes me selfish, then I guess I'm okay with that. Because at the end of the day, this is my life, this is my house, and nobody else is going to put my needs first if I don't.